So welcome everyone. For those that are new, my name is Anita Thompson. I own Art Venture Workshops. I'm a mobile-based artist. I travel to different libraries mostly, and some other venues, but the libraries are some of my favorites. So tonight we are going to be creating a 1980s type colored pencil roller skate drawing. Um, I will preface this by this is a harder drawing, but I will go slow. Once we get the drawing done, the shading, I feel like the shading is pretty easy. It's usually two-toned shading. So what I mean by that is, for instance, where we have the green, we use a light green and a dark green. Where we have yellow, we use yellow and orange, so a shade darker. We add a little bit of red in there too. That's in the shoelaces, uh, and also sort of around the roller skate. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to point that out that the shading is actually not as bad as you think, and especially because it's done on like a blue paper. We use the blue, coming through. So, but anyway, that is not to scare you. I promise I'm taking you step by step, and it's going to be fun, and I think it's going to be really neat. Okay, so, oh, Karen's coming on. Let's let Karen in. All right, welcome, Karen. I'm going to share the chat one more time. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start off with our pencil. And as always, we're going to go lighter. Let me make sure I have this. All right, put this up closer. There we go. All right, so we're going to start off with our roller skate. So we're going to think of this as it's almost like a boot, right? We're also going to think of it as it's sort of at a three-quarter view, right? It's not right in front of us. It's not facing forward. It's kind of not quite to the side either. So it's kind of a three-quarter view. All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to do basic shapes. We're going to start in the middle of our page. We want to make sure that we leave enough room at the top, remember, for our laces, right? Our curving of our laces. So I'm going to go down probably about 2 inches at least from the top, maybe 3. And so I'm going to start off. Let me make sure you guys can see this on Zoom, because I know with the blue paper, it's a little bit darker. All right, so we're going to start off at first with the top part of our roller skate that is here up on the left, and we're going to make like a boot shape. So on the left here, we're going to go down and we're going to curve a little bit. And then what we're going to do, so we're going to take a look at the shape here, right? And so we kind of curve. We're not worried too much about all the details, like the bumps right now. We just want to get the basic shape because we'll come back. And then we're going to get to the heel, right? And then we're going to curve outward, inward, and outward again. So let's do that. So here we are. Here's at the heel. Now we're going to go this way. I'm going to move this up a little bit. All right, so we're going to move this way. Right, so when we get to the heel, we're going to kind of curve inward, and then we're going to go outward, going towards the bottom corner of our paper. And then we're going to flatten out. Right, so it's just like kind of a boot. And then we're going to go back up here. sort of like this shape. Now we're gonna thin it out a little bit. We're gonna make it a little bit longer, but we want our basic shape to be like that. We're gonna add a little bit longer here to the bottom, but I want to make sure that you get that shape correct. And then so that it doesn't look flat, we're going to do something where we're going to make it look a little three-dimensional in the way that we are drawing it. We're going to add some extra lines here. So up here, we have that, right? We're going to add on the bottom the sort of part that is underneath the shoe, right? So that's the orange part here. But we're going to wait until we're going to wait around this section. And the reason being is that we're going to elongate this just a little bit. I wanted you to get that shape first. And then we're going to elongate it. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with the tongue now. So you're going to leave this the way it is, right? It's open. And now we're going to start making it three-dimensional for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to elongate this a little more, right? So where we curve, you're going to erase it and you're going to extend it a little bit. You're going to extend it maybe like another inch or two. And then you're going to round it here like so. I'm going to move this up. Okay, so now we're going to deal with this part right here. We're going to leave this alone. And the reason is because we want to make this look three-dimensional. But what we're going to do first is we're going to come up here and create the tongue. And so right here, we're going to make almost like a, what am I trying to say? We're going to make a shape like this, and this is going to be the tongue. So what we're doing is we're creating this shape right here. We're going to curve up top and then go down here. So this should be sort of a U shape here. And I'm going to erase the line that was the top opening of my shoe. So the reason I'm doing it this way is to help you with the perspective. And so that's the inside. That's where this part is. And we're going to, we're going to change a little bit of the tongue later on. But once you have that, you can then come back up here and you have a little bit of an opening showing of the back of your roller skate. I'm going to make this darker. So there's a little bit right there, right? Opening. And now we're going to make around the tongue. We're going to make that section. So we start off here. And we're going to go up the side on the left. And it's going to, when it gets up to about right here, you're going to stop and then curve up to the tongue. So again, what I just did was, I'm trying to see if more light is better for you guys. I think it's less. There we go. Right? So perspective wise, that's going to curve because it's on the side. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come back down here. And you know how I had you, make this around the roller skate? You're going to erase it for now because we might add a little bit more girth to this bottom part. I wanted you to get the shape of the boot and sort of the perspective. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to now come back over here to the left side. And we're going to change this a little bit, right? We got our basic shape in. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually draw the green part over here, right at the top. But we're then also going to draw the laces part. And so it's going to curve and wrap around the shape. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about here, right? We're going to kind of curve it. You can make it a little more kind of bubbly. And now this is going to curve back. And you're going to add a bump here. Right? So this shape here, and there's a little bit of a curve outward here. And then you can erase that part inside because we don't need it anymore. It's on top of the heel. And now we have that bump and we have the heel. I'll let everybody get caught up. Okay, so now we're going to start coming down here. And we're probably going to make some more space over here. We have the basic shape. So we come over here by the heel. And we're going to just expand this a little bit. So the part that it's kind of curving inward, maybe like 1/2 inch. So we're adding another 1/2 inch to make it a little bit wider. And then we go a little bit flat. And we're going to start to curve upward. But what we're going to do is we're going to start creating a little bit of the side here of the shoe that is showing. So that's here, the green part that we sort of started. It's kind of really thin. Right there. And then we're going to do the rest of the shoe here. Underneath, or I should say above, sorry, above, where the bottom part of the shoe is happening. So it's going to kind of go around like this. And it's going to bump out a bit. Because this is a different side of the shoe. So what we're doing is the blue part here. So this bumpy line here. And we're going to go up as if we're going to go straight. Like straight up the shoe. But we're not. Because we have like a rainbow type effect that's happening down here that will meet at the bottom. So you're going to start here at the bottom. It's going to curve a little bit and then indent. And that's going to curve back all the way up to here. So where the heel is, kind of like in between the heel and the back of the shoe. Curve. Now, if yours has to be a little wider, just fix it. Curve should look a little like that. And we're going to make 2 stripes. Here's one. And then here is another. Now the purple one is a little bit thicker. And as it goes underneath here, you're going to make it wide and curve. And what I mean by that is when you make that curve here, you're going to keep going long with it. Now, if yours is looking a little flat, you can add a little more to the heel, right? Like if I want to do something like this and make it a little bit thicker, you can. Oh, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. I'm copying the supplies in the chat. We're on the drawing part and we're recording, so I have everyone muted, but welcome. It's good to have you. So now, if you have issues with it looking too flat, hi, Sandra. Good to have you. What you want to do is your heel is a little bit higher than the bottom part here. The other thing is you can extend this a little if you need to. I'm going to make mine just a little bit thicker. I like the toe of my roller skate to be a little bit thicker. Okay, now once you have that, you're now going to add your, the base on around your roller skate. It's thicker where the heel is, and then it gets a lot thinner as it's moving around to the toe area of the shoe, right? And then it kind of flattens out, or kind of circles around, I should say, a little bit. And then the toe is right here, is kind of sticking out. Let me make that a little darker. Like that. Okay. Before we start with the wheels, we're going to come back up here and we're going to make this side of the tongue a little bit bumpier. So what I mean is this is going to stand out or stand, it's going to be higher than the tongue on the right side. And the reason is because of the angle. And then also one more thing up here, again, because of the angle, and this is why, we draw lightly so that we can now, we're getting the angle right. We're going to come up here. This is the opening of our boot, right? We're going to come over here and we're going to make this a little bit higher up just by going like this. So again, we're making the opening smaller, and you go and make the curve like that. And then of course you have to bring up the lace, sort of the lace area here. So again, what I did was I made this opening smaller by bringing up the top of the boot. I erased it, and then I also brought up the lace area right here. This up. All right. So now that we have that, we're going to come back down here. So we're going to do the basics here, and we're going to add on the wheels. But first, we're going to add on, underneath the wheels. So we're going to move in a bit from the heel, and we're going to make what's going to look a little bit like a cube. So we're making this part here, and then we're going to add on the wheel. We can kind of start off and make the shape there, And then, maybe it will be easier, I think, if we create the wheel. So our wheel, perspective-wise, would be a line. So it'd sort of be like this. Round. And then flat. Okay. And then this is the front of our wheel. So we're going to make a cylinder. So it's going to be like a circle over here. Let's see, it's going to be a cylinder like that. And then we make the back part of our shape underneath like this. And then to make it three-dimensional, we add this shape here. So the wheel is connected to this apparatus under here. And if you want to make a bigger wheel, my wheel is kind of small. I want to make it bigger. But I wanted to kind of show you, basically, to make a wheel. Again, we do it off to the side, and then we create a bit of a circle like that. So I'm going to make mine a little bigger. So basically, you make the sides bigger and the circle bigger. Okay. And then we have our other one, which is going to end up right where the corner of our shoe is. So we make the line, the back area, or kind of the side of the wheel, coming from underneath our roller skate. We make our circle. And depending on how big you want your skate, we haven't done the other side of it, but let me move this up. And then we have a little apparatus under here too. That is kind of a curve like this under the heel, partially hidden. And after that, we have our stopper. Gosh, I remember those stoppers. I was never good at stopping with those. I would sort of, go forward, stop with that thing, and then I would like fly into the grass, like almost head first. It was not a good, I was not good at using the stopper, so I stopped doing that. I would just try to hold on to things as I was trying to stop on my own. So I'm going to go a little closer now that we are getting into the detail. So the stopper So these lines come out, and this is actually a curve. Okay, so almost like a smile, right? So that's like a curve. There's no straight lines, hardly any straight lines in this. And then our stopper, it's also a bit curved on the side and curved at the bottom because it is round, just like our wheels. And we have sort of a base, right? So again, this has volume. I made mine a little too straight. So for instance, right, a smile, and then we have the bottom part. And it's also curved. Okay, now we want to go inside the wheel, or I should say inside the wheels, right? So we make inside the wheel, we want to make an edge. So again, this is why we use our eraser. We make another smaller circle inside. And then we come in the middle here. We make a straight line, two straight lines, and then again, a circle. Right, this is in the middle of the wheel, and then we make another circle. And we repeat that on the other side. So again, come inside and make a smaller circle. It's more, maybe more like an oval, ovalish. Then you come inside. Make two straight lines. I kind of curved this one a little bit because you can see a little more of the wheel. Then you make an oval and a little circle inside. So we're getting there. So I always tend to go back over here and make it a little thicker for here, because then we're going to make a detail here, right, for our roller skate that is kind of it's kind of a little thicker at the bottom, and then it kind of comes to a little bit of a point here. So that's the detail I'm talking about. I'm going to fix my heel a little bit so that there's some more room for that detail. So you can either make the back of that a little thicker, right? So if I were to make this a little thicker, go down a little more, like so. That would be kind of fun. And up here, I like to kind of curve this off a little more. We had it a little more of, it's kind of straight up, but I'm going to curve it and erase that part so that now the shoe opening is even more curved. Just fixing my angle here a little bit. Okay, so now we are going to add on the openings for the laces. We're going to start up here. So we're going to make 2 circles up here. 1, 2. Okay, so we're going to make circles at first. Now, this is the opening of where, or I'm sorry, this is the opening, kind of, or sort of the area where we're going to be adding our lace. Aren't they called eyelets? They're those little round, right? Okay. All right. Thanks, Shar. I was seeing you going, yep. I'm like, eyelets. Okay. Haven't had to use that word in a long time. So we're going to make the eyelets around here. But first we're going to start off with circles. And let's see, how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8. If you can fit 8, if you can't, it's okay. It doesn't have to be the perfect shape or the perfect amount. And they're going to get a little smaller as we're kind of coming down the shoe. Not much, but a little bit. Now, remember, we're going to be erasing again as well in order to make it look three-dimensional. So you're drawing these lightly. I'm drawing darker so you can see it on Zoom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, I got one more. 8. Now what we're going to do is we're going to draw the insides of the eyelets. And so we're going to come up here. And so we drew the outside of the eyelet, whole thing. So now we're going to kind of draw a half circle on the right side of this one. I'm going to go in really close now. Okay, so like that. But then this one, we're going to draw a circle. Now, with all of these, we're going to sort of draw kind of like part of a letter C. The reason, and it's like a half C. The reason we're doing this is because we're going to start creating the laces. And that's going to be the opening for our laces. And so again, you want to make sure that they are, that you're drawing lightly. And we're gonna leave these two alone for right now, but we're gonna start our laces right here. So our laces, here's our first lace. It's gonna go, so remember, this is the tongue of the shoe. This is the tongue, right? So our lace is gonna go over, and then it's gonna bend, because this is the other side of our shoe. And we're gonna make it three-dimensional, also double, right? And it's got to connect with that kind of C part, C area. And there's our lace coming out of it. It's our first lace. And then you erase inside the lace where the other side of the shoe is showing, right? Because now the lace is there. So we're going to add the laces from this side only. Now you can make your laces go over, but they always have to kind of match up, right, with the start of that C shape and the bottom part of it. And then around is around that shape, you know, there's still part of the eyelet. So here is my second lace, right? So I erase, and I'm going to make this darker so you can see it. And you're going to keep going. And toward the end of the shoe, right, you want that lace to kind of go around the shoe. And just keep going to each of the laces. And making them across. And then guess what? We're going to do the other side. But you can't see the eyelets on the other side, right? Because they're on the other side of the shoe. So now what we do is we start off on the other side, be up top, and maybe around right here. And we're going to make that lace curve and go underneath, and then just kind of go underneath the tongue. So curve. Now you can make it over too, right? These are laces, so it just depends. Do you want it to be over or under the lace that you just made? And so you're going to come from the other side and you're going to make laces in between or on top. And you can draw them right on top or under. It might get a little confusing as far as like, you know, when you're drawing it, but it's going to go underneath the tongue, right? So not up to where you drew the other ones because it doesn't connect there. It's going to go underneath. So, you know, I may have one over here and I'm going to, you know, you can only see a little bit of it with that one. And maybe we've got one here and it's a little bit further down. So there again, I have to kind of erase the line. So you're drawing under or over the laces that you already made and ending up on the tongue. So I think that's all the laces I'm going to draw. Well, you know what? There might be one more over here. There we go. We are almost done with the drawing part. And the coloring actually goes really fast. But our last part is going to be now making the first lace here on the right side. So you can make it anywhere because it's kind of like kind of coming from the other side, curving around. So we make a line first for the lace. Make that darker. Almost like a snake, right? And then we're going to make it three-dimensional. So we add the other line. And when it turns, right, it turns direction. We make the line close to the other line, right? So it's now almost like there's a point there. And then when the string turns, you now come back to that line and now come up here, right, and make it curve. And on the ends of these laces, I don't know what these things are called, but it's like the end of the laces, and then it gets kind of, it's like that little, I'm sure there's a word for it. See that? Ooh, an alley? Ooh, okay. I gotta write that down. I probably should have looked to see what the names were beforehand. An alley. Ooh, that's cool. I remember going to roller skating birthday parties all the time when I was a kid. It was like that was the thing. You had your birthday party at a roller skating rink. Not everybody. I mean, we personally had home birthday parties because we couldn't afford that kind of thing. But like I had friends that would have birthday parties at roller skating rinks. It was so much fun. An aglet. Yes, Karen, I remember that. An aglet. I'm writing that down. Thank you. Yes. So cool. And then on the other side, we didn't make the, the other lace. And so we come up to the top part on the left here, right? Where we made our, backward C here. And now we're going to make the lace here and you're going to curve it, right? So I use a line first and then however I want to curve it, I have to kind of curve mine outward. And then back like this. Make this a little bit curvier. And then again, you make it three-dimensional by going back to where the lace comes out of. Follow it around. Right? And then we have the end here. I made mine a little too close to the top part. Now this, because we can see it a little more, is a little more three-dimensional as far as the circle, right? Kind of make a sort of a flatter circle, and then in the middle, and we have the aglet. Thanks, Karen, for that. That's so cool. I remember that now that you told us. I have to fix my lace here. Got a little bit roundish. Now, if you want, you can curve this too, right? Like here, I'm gonna, just by making a curved line here, now my lace flipped over a little bit. See that? And you can kind of see underneath. And now we color. So we are going to start off first with blue, using blue. for, we're going to start in the center with the tongue. If you are using neon, you want to start off, if you have your neon blue. If you are using regular colored pencils, you want to start off with regular blue. So regular blue is kind of darker, right? So either way, it's going to be a little bit darker. And what we're going to do first is we're actually going to outline everything in blue. And then what I should probably say is lighten up all your lines with your eraser. So I'm doing that. I'm just kind of using a kneaded eraser and just lightening up my lines just real quickly. Reason being, we're going to outline everything in blue. I guess it doesn't really matter if the pencil is showing through with this one, to be honest, because it's on colored paper, and also we're going to be using, our blue to outline. But I like to sort of make sure there's no pencil lines there. So what we'll do after we outline everything in blue is we'll erase away the pencil. So again, we are outlining everything in blue as if we drew it in pencil, or as if we drew it in blue colored pencil. So this will take a little time. Everything in your blue. So the other thing with your laces, you can make parts of them a little bit squiggly if you want, in the sense of, they're kind of underneath certain parts, the way they would fall on the shoe, you know, um, might be a little bit up and down. And remember, there is that line in between the tongue, right? And so you've got some lines to go in between your laces on the right side. Oops, I missed a. Here's a very um, this happens where you forget some lines where the laces are. And when you're getting to the bottom part of where the kind of sneaker area is, right, you can also make some kind of bumpy lines where the toe would be. And when you're finished with that, you want to erase away the pencil. Of course, and this is where you discover what parts you didn't copy over because you've erased away parts of the pencil and there's an opening in the drawing. But that's okay. You can just go back and redraw it with blue. You probably need to resharpen. You might need to resharpen your blue because we're going to continue using the blue. So if you find that it is, you don't have a point to it, you want to sharpen your blue right now when you're ready. Okay, so the next step that we're going to do with our blue is we're going to start to do some shading. And we're going to start first with the top part of our opening to our roller skate. And that is this shape right here. And so we're going to shade, and it would be a little darker here. So we're going to use, the blue paper that we already have here. We're going to go shade darker here. And then we're going to get a bit lighter. But then a little darker around sort of the edge. Now this is inside, right? Inside your shoe, inside the shoe. And then, you're going to go across the way and you're going to shade kind of dark in this part of the shoe. And look at this. You can see that I've had lotion on my fingers. It shows up on the blue paper. It's kind of gross. Okay. Now, the next part that we're going to shade blue is going to be this section, and we're going to shade against the shoe here, and then we're kind of going to shade around where this section, the next section is, but we shade a little bit dark up against the shoe. And then maybe a little bit like right here up against the other side. So again, we're using our blue first. We're also going to go to the bottom now of our roller skate, and we're going to create some shadow shading. So we're going to shade a little bit. Again, this is just with our blue for right now. We're shading in between this section of underneath the roller skate, and we're going to shade underneath as well. But let's first, before we shade under here, we're going to make a shadow line. Let me move this up. We're going to make a shadow line here, and that's going to connect to our other skate. And we're going to make a shadow line here. So here and here, and then we're going to lightly shade in that area. So here. And for now, we're just going to shade lightly. And then we'll go back, because inside a shadow, it's not just shaded lightly. There are sections that are a little darker. That all depends on where the object is. So, and where the sun is hitting the object that is being in shadow. So, for instance, or I should say the lack of where the sun is. So here it would be a little darker because no light is getting, or not as much light is getting under here. So we go a little bit darker, and that goes for the same. It's underneath the shoe and right in this area here where it's kind of making a shadow shape of kind of a squarish right there. So I'm pointing. See, you can see that is darker. And we're going to get a little darker. Underneath the roller skate, kind of in a boxy line that's a little bit darker. So what I mean is, like, if you want to make a line here and then shade a little darker up to it, like that. And the rest, you would shade a little bit darker underneath each of the wheels, but in back of the wheel as well. So like here, and then a little bit right here. And then the wheel up front in this section here, a little bit darker. And then really up front underneath this section, it would be just a little bit darker under the whole area where the wheel is. Now we're still using our blue. And we're now going to go into the rest of the roller skate. And we're going to go into the tongue area now. And this is where we're actually going to start adding shading the darker parts of where the fabric is kind of crinkling. So here's what I mean. I'm going to show this up close. So where you see the lighter blue, that is the blue of the paper. where you see the shaded blue is where I've used the blue colored pencil. And so what you want to do is you want to add parts using the blue colored pencil. And the blue colored pencil is where the fabric is crinkling, right? It's kind of bending and creating a shadow. Okay, and so there would be a lot of that happening where the laces are, and then up here and along the side where the tongue is. So let's start doing that. Okay, so I like to start kind of right around against the tongue here, kind of go down the sides first, in between each of the laces along the side of where it's meeting up with, the rest of, I keep wanting to say sneaker. It's not a sneaker. And I add a little bit of a crinkle here where the tongue is kind of, bending a little bit. And again, I'm going to go along the side and down in between the laces with some shading. You can have a lot of fun with this shading here. Make lots of crinkles. And I like to kind of shade right up against each of the laces, almost like I'm outlining the laces with shading, on the tongue side. So again, it's almost like I'm outlining with the blue, but I'm kind of shading up against the tongue areas or the lace where the laces are. So that's the first thing I do. And then I go back and start adding kind of lines, light lines of wrinkles on either side of the tongue. I make the lines first, and then I go back in and I might shade a little bit. Your darkest areas are going to be, like your shaded parts, are going to be, again, where the fabric is kind of crinkling. And so it's might be up against the tongue. If you look at fabric, when you have fabric folded over, and it creates a shadow, the shadow is usually where it has already folded over. So that's what we are recreating here. And then as the tongue kind of progresses downward, I shade a little darker in between each of the laces, if that makes sense. And when you're done with that part, you're going to go along the edge of the blue. where it gets into the actual, toe area. And you're also going to shade and make some wrinkles there too. But first, kind of shading around the toe area where it meets the other section. This is a very difficult one, especially as far as drawing wise. So if you are still here, I commend you. This is one of the more difficult drawings that I teach. And like I said, none of the other libraries picked it up until now. So I'm very impressed with you for sticking with it. Definitely makes me nostalgic for roller skating. I would never try at this age again, but I remember it being so much fun. So again, you're now taking that blue, right? And you're going around this area and you're making, wrinkles. First making lines, wavy lines of where it might be wrinkling up. You definitely want to shade kind of in around where it meets up with the bottom portion of the shoe or kind of this section of the shoe. Shade there. And you can shade a little bit darker where it's up at the top, where the stripe is, and kind of around the area of the stripe here. Right? And it should already be looking pretty realistic. And when you're done with that part, we're going to put down our blue. And we're actually going to pick up our orange when you're ready. And you're going to use the orange for the bottom part underneath, I don't know, the piping. I'm going to call that piping. And with the orange, you're actually going to do a little bit of the shading first. So you're using the blue still as most of that area, but then you're using the orange as some of that shading. And then we're going to add yellow to it. So you can kind of go a little bit light in areas. So the orange is the shaded part, even though we haven't added the base color yet. The base color is going to be yellow. The two parts that we want orange is around, the bottom part of it, and then also the laces. And so here again, you can sort of shade darker and then leave, the blue showing because we're going to go over it in some of the yellow. But for now, the blue is going to serve as your base color. Each lace would be a little bit darker as it comes out of the eyelet. So shading wise. And I kind of shade when I'm doing each lace. I shade at the kind of like the where it comes out of the eyelet, and then where it, wraps around the shoe on the other side. And then I also shade along the sides of each lace on the inside, almost like, again, almost like I'm outlining a little bit. At this point, it's almost like coloring, right, in one of the coloring books, but we're shading. And if you're okay with running about 15 minutes, I think we're gonna probably end around 8:15. I think the original posting was like 8 o'clock. Um, but if you're okay with 8:15, please hang out. And if you have to go shortly, that's okay. This is being recorded, so if you're getting tired or frustrated, it's okay. This is being recorded, and everyone that has attended this evening will be sent the recording either way. So just so you know. And when you're ready after you've done the orange, you then grab your yellow and you go over the laces, the entire lace. And you'll see now, it's kind of shaded already with the orange. If you want to go back and make it a little darker, this is where I add a little bit of red as well to some of the shaded areas, where the shaded areas that have orange, just to get it a little deeper. I like to go back and add a little bit of some red. You don't have to. You can also, I have also used purple in this part. So again, where it would be a little bit darker, I'm now using a bit of purple. to shade on top of the orange on the laces. You could shade this for probably another 2 hours. You really have fun with it, adding multiple colors even to the laces. Um, you don't have to. Um, the other part, after you do your orange, we have some purple on top of the blue as well. And that is that the blue is the base, the purple is the dark area. And that would be definitely where the, that shape here is happening. And also in one of the first stripes, it is purple. And I also like to add some pink to the purple. And again, if you are using the neons, it looks even more fun. When you are coloring in the stripes and anything around where the shoe area is, your darkest shading will be closer um, to where the bottom part meets, if that makes sense. I like to sometimes add a little purple to the blue areas too, just again to make it a little richer. I did it, the first time because these are neon pencils and it gives it a little more of a vibrancy, but you don't have to. You could also change up the colors in this if you want. If you don't want to do green stripes, you don't have to. You can make that a different color. Maybe you just want to keep it the blue of the, of the skate. That's okay too. But basically, when you are using, um, the light green or the neon green, you use that, and then you use either a darker green or the dark blue for the shading. Basically, I'm on the green stripe here. It looks yellowish on Zoom, but that is actually a light green. And the things that are green are the stripe and the block underneath your roller skate toward the back and the stopper up front. Oh, and also where the laces are outside of the tongue area. That is all green. And so here again, there's like a base green. And then if you want to go back and make it a little darker, you use the regular green or, a dark green. For Crayola, it's just the regular green. looking rather yellow on Zoom. All right, where's my regular green? Oh, yeah, so the regular green serves as the darker shaded parts. And again, this is where you can add wrinkles. The green is also the eyelets too. Now, say that your green is not dark enough, you can also use blue as some shading on your green. And if you don't even have like a darker green with you, you could use blue, the blue that we've been using. You can use that also as shading. And I do add a little bit of the dark blue to the block underneath. I actually added a little bit of black there too to get it really dark, but you don't have to. Can't wait to see what these look like. And with anything that is round, right, like the wheels or the stopper, your darker areas are going to be on either side of the circular area. And then in the middle of it is going to be, the lighter shade. I've done the blue, the orange. If you've done the purple, and here again, if you want it to be really dark on the purple area, you can introduce the blue. There's a lot of blue in this, and our final color is going to be the pink. Which is the wheels. The toe area. It's kind of the striping. Up at the top on the left where the lace is coming out, the first, the one side. And so I do it in pink first, and then I add purple as the shading. You can add a little bit of some red if you want. A darker pink, like a magenta, if you have it. Or again, the blue, but I add purple. You could even add a little bit of orange in the pink if you wanted. So again, the base color of the wheels is pink. The one stripe, or not really a stripe, but like the area from around where the toe is pink. And then again, the shading can be, I outline each of the eyelets using the purple when it's against the pink. And in green, I outline them in the darker green. And on the wheels, again, using purple, but the purple is really the darker areas of the pink. And so it would be kind of like inside the wheel would be a little bit of that purple. And the little part that connects the wheel, that section is also a purple. All right, I'm gonna add a little dark green, and then love to see what everybody's looks like in just a second. I know that this is a lot of shading. A lot of you might not be finished with the shading, but I definitely want to see what everybody's looks like. And I'm going to do that in just a second. And you can take your time later on with a little more of this. It's really fun to shade. And this one takes a long time. Okay. All right, so I am going to stop the recording at this point so that we can share with each other what we have.